Welcome, everybody. We'll get started in about 7 minutes to the Finish Strong, Start Fresh. Make sure you're getting your drinks, using the restroom, doing what you need to do so that way you can be fully present here once we start with all of our great speakers and lineup. We'll come back soon. Good morning, good evening, everybody. We will get started in about 5 minutes. We're super excited about the Finish Strong, Start Fresh and our amazing lineup. So get yourself ready, stretch it out. It's like a marathon. And we will be back in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I'll play some music. Hopefully it'll work. Hey, everybody. Is my co-host around?
Of course I'm here,
Hi,
just
everybody.
secretly in the background.
We're gonna get started. Just a minute or two. We're super excited
Hello.
to have you here.
We are super excited. Welcome to the Finish Strong Start Fresh Virtual Global Summit. We have a lot to cover in the next several hours plus a break, and we are super excited that you are here to join us for all of this information. We too are going to be taking notes this entire time.
Yeah, absolutely. Who else is ready for this? I have a random question. Put it into the chat. How many of you, even with a virtual meeting or a virtual summit, put on perfume? I was thinking that this morning. I
And
love
how many of you are not wearing pants? I mean, let's just be honest here.
for
This
real.
is the judgment-free zone. I want to know who's rocking pajama pants. You just never know.
Yes, no pictures, please, just in case. Just in case it's a little racy. That's a whole different thing. How you doing today, Amanda? Are you excited?
I am super excited. It says that chat is disabled. If we ever got through a single performance on internet ever without having at least one technical difficulty, it'd be the end of times. So bear
Put it
with
in
us
the
as we
Q&A.
figure that out.
Yeah, put it in the Q&A. We'll figure it out on the first speaker for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
into
this
the Q&A.
absolutely. So Amanda and I are really excited about this for several reasons. First of all, we love our speaker lineup. I don't know if you caught a glimpse of of our screensaver while we were dancing away to Outcast. I do love that song. Reminds me of good old days. But we are extremely excited about all of our speakers. Um, yeah, I was sharing yesterday with someone about just the diversity in the topics that we're going to have and like how it's really going to hit different people different ways and in different seasons of where they're at in their life in their business. Yeah, what are you most excited about, Amanda?
I'm just excited to be in a room with so many incredible people from all over the world. And I think that's one of the things I've talked about on a couple of our lives of just the thing I love most about global summits and all these virtual summits is that we can be in more than one country at the same time right now and learning from each other from a global perspective. And that's just something that wasn't available to me when I first started out as an entrepreneur. I mean, I'm sure it was probably available in some way, shape, or form, but not as readily available. And so I'm really excited to be around all these incredible entrepreneurs around the world. I think this is such an amazing opportunity to be able to catch up with everybody and see what everybody's working on and learn and grow myself as an entrepreneur. So there's always something you can learn, even if it's a topic that I'm familiar with, there's always a new way to learn something and always a new way to see something. So I just love being in a room with all these amazing people.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so here's some. Sorry, I'm already spilling coffee this morning. It's just going to be one of those days, you know. It is 7 a.m. Amanda was like, "Sorry, it's super early for you there." I was like, "Babe, it's 7. Like, I have half my
In
day
my defense, I thought it was 5 a.m. because I can't
daylight.
do math. Now the daylight savings has come. I can't do math. I can't, that's that 1 hour difference is now ruined my world. And maybe next week I'll
100%.
figure it out.
I think I've been hanging out with you a little too long because now all of a sudden I can't convert time zones. There's nothing wrong with that. We're buddies. We love each other. All right.
Good with money, bad with time conversions.
I'm okay
We
with
all have
you.
very different
Good with
math challenges.
That's right. That's right. So
Yeah.
we have time to kill. We wanted to do our opening and have it a bit more casual just to kind of let everybody in because we know that some people tend to be a little on the late side. Allow our speaker to come in. But we want to just give you some tips of, how to get the most out of networking and especially virtual conferences, hence, since we're in one. Um, yeah. Amanda, what's one of your go-to?
Well, for sure, we've heard us say before, if you haven't listened to our podcast recently, we recently did a podcast on how to get the most out of virtual education. But in a nutshell, one of the things we really talk about is that the speed of implementation is going to be so important. It's not enough just to show up and be in the background and then go cook dinner or like run errands and then come back in and out, because that isn't a way to get the most out of this. Instead, if you're completely present, actively listening, taking notes, and then making a point to actively implement what you learned today, at least one thing from each speaker immediately, like before the next session of the conference even starts back up again. So think of what you can do for after each speaker. Think about one thing from each speaker's presentation that you want to implement into your business, and try to get that done before the next session begins. Because if you can implement it right away, you're going to have a much more likely chance to continue it over and over again and actually learn and implement what you have learned immediately into your business. So think about, as you're listening today to each presentation, if you're writing notes down, think about the least the one thing that you want to implement today, and then set some time aside after all the speakers are done to do that one thing, hopefully before our next session begins. Now, if you're in whatever time zone you're in, it might not be feasible. You might want to go to bed and then wake up for the next one, but it is possible. So if you can try to get that done quickly, you'll see much better results overall when it comes to what you get from this summit.
Yes, we're dealing with technical difficulties behind the scenes. I love that particular go-to. And I think that this is for virtual and for live networkings and summits and conferences. There's two things that you actually said there, is not just like having the mindset, well, a few things, not just having the mindset, to actually bring in that information and then apply it, but it's also scheduling out. I think that that's one like takeaway or one piece of advice that I remember getting years ago. And it was actually something we taught with a franchise that I owned. And it was to schedule your follow-up or follow-through time after summits, after conferences, after networking events. That way you have it already in your calendar. So when you're putting that event into your calendar, you're also bucketing up time the next day or later that day, but within 48 hours. And if you can do it within 24 hours, that's even better, of said event, to go ahead and follow through. Or implement in this case. Another thing too is that, sometimes the ideas don't come from the speakers themselves, but more from the kind of an indirect manifestation, we'll say. And for those of you just joining us, we're just doing a small opening, giving you tips and tricks of how to utilize summits, etc. Before our next speakers come, and working out some technical difficulty kinks in the background. So that's why Amanda and I, when we're not speaking, the other one's like looking all serious. But a lot of times indirect manifestation or ideas can happen. You'll be listening to a topic and all of a sudden your mind goes, oh snap, I need to do this, or I like this could work, or this could work. And it has nothing to do with the topic at hand. Obviously, we want you fully present, or you should be. Like, it's not just with our summit, but when you commit to a summit, when you commit to a conference, when you commit to networking, you should be in there, in the room, physically, mentally, spiritually. You should be present, right? And so, however, with that being said, when we're not in, when we put our mind in a different kind of a different mode, sometimes even some of the things that maybe some of the balls that dropped come to you and be like, snap, I forgot that. Actually, that just happened to me the other day. I was getting a healing session by one of my dear girlfriends who's in town. And all of a sudden, this checklist of balls that I dropped this last week, like, started ticking in my mind. And it's just because I was in a different space and it allowed me to be able to remember that. So when you're in a summit, when you're in that networking, when you're in that conference, make sure that you're taking those notes. And I like to categorize my notes. So this is like more of like ideas I have typically I'll do it in like 4 quadrants. So there'll be ideas, there'll be so these are ideas that come to my mind, learnings, right? Implement from it, and then to-dos. So there might be additional to-dos that come that aren't necessarily part of the implementation. So I like to have big pieces of paper handy, not my regular notebook. Sometimes I'll have a whole notebook, like if it's a really long conference, and I'll take notes per person. So I'll have that as well. But I love a big piece of paper, and then I can transfer everything over, or I have a filing system that I use to keep these notes.
The other thing that we always recommend is if you have not yet started to follow the speakers, us included, make sure that you take a few minutes to follow everyone, because it's not just the learning that you'll have now, it's that connection with them later. So really being able to take this information, take these connections, and reconnect with them after the summit or anytime, really, that's really going to go take it that much further. So if you haven't yet connected with our speakers, make sure you are doing that. And of course, we are recording this. Probably, are we recording this at this point?
We are
Make sure we're
recording.
recording this. Just checking again. We have technical things every time. So we're recording this. You will get all the replays. We are sending you information from about our speakers. So if you haven't followed them, make sure you are doing so at some point during this and really following up with them, because they are here to help you.
Yeah. Go ahead and throw your questions into the Q&A. And whenever we ask you to throw something into the chat, throw it into Q&A until my first speaker. I'll go in and try to change the background, because of course it would not be a virtual event if something techie wasn't going awry. So I need to go back into the back end and take a look. However, we are hosting and opening the ceremony. What's your favorite thing about like the opening ceremonies of events? All I can think of is the Olympics, but
I was like, the dancing, the music, I don't know, like parades and things. I'm big, right. The first thing I thought of was the Olympics. I'm like, well, if we could do an Olympic opening, that would be amazing. We'll put that on the bucket list for later to have a huge Olympic type
behind the
opening.
scenes. Yeah, figure it out.
That would actually be amazing. But I think my favorite thing is kind of the energy of looking at the speaker list and thinking, like, I sometimes like to think, what do I think I'm going to get out of this? Because every topic has something that you're going to get, and you don't know what, I mean, I don't know what everybody's going to be saying, but it's nice sometimes to kind of pre-decide, okay, I've never heard this person speak, or I know this person speaks really well on this, and I really want to hear more about this, or here's a follow-up question I think I already have before I've even listened to it. So sometimes I try to like mind read and predict what it is I'm going to be hearing, and then kind of make notes around what I already want to ask them, because even with just the title of a presentation, I can start to think of some things that I want to ask around that topic, even if they don't end up covering it in their presentation. If I have a question around their topic, I'm sure they have a follow-up, a possibility there. So it's limitless in what you can ask, but I like to give myself a little like, ooh, I wonder if they're going to talk about this. And if they talk about this, I want to ask this. And so I like the energy of that. And I like to kind of guess and predict what I'm going to hear and make a list of pre-questions that I can ask, even if they aren't covering it in their actual presentation. It's just, if they're a wealth of information and knowledge on that subject matter, I know I can have an opportunity later to ask my question, even if they aren't covering it in this particular presentation.
Yeah, I love that. You know, I take a slightly different angle. I am one who loves to ask myself, why? Why am I attending this conference? Or why am I attending the summit? Or why am I attending this networking event, virtual or live? Because it helps me root back into, I made this choice. I'm doing this for a reason, not just because my friend's going, or not just because I think it might be good. No, like dig a little deeper, and then I then call myself out and say, okay, what do I want to take away? So it's almost like setting the intention and starting to pull, because at the end of the day, it's, yeah, we can hear from all these fabulous speakers and like learn all this great content. But if I'm not in the right headspace or in the right receivability, which is a word, I think. It's a word now. It's a phrase now.
It is now. It is now.
It's my promoter coming out. It's the coffee, and it's only my first cup, although I spilled it already. Um, yeah, so I'm getting myself prepared, and I'll usually do this the night before, but also right before the event, I'll kind of check back in with myself and say, okay, like, what am I wanting? What am I really wanting out of this? Because not I'm not trying to get myself to predetermine. I still want to be open to the event, and not make myself narrow-minded, but it's almost like putting my own head in the game to say, okay, like, no matter what they say, if I'm not open, then I'm not going to hear it. And so really, like, recentering myself back into that is something that I like to do as well. Go ahead and drop into the Q&A if there's anything that you like to do when you're preparing. Again, Q&A, since our chat is not currently working, but we'll read it out loud. Yeah, drop into the chat. What do you like to do to prepare? Hey, we see our speaker is here. We'll let you in a second. Lizzie's working behind the scenes. We'll let you forward soon, Mr. Nate. That means that we might give you more time.
I love that this person said that they like to prepare snacks. Yes. You should always have snacks and drinks nearby. If you're in a virtual summit, have all your snacks, all the best
Absolutely.
snacks.
Absolutely. Hey, Nate. Our first speaker's here.
Hi.
Muted.
What's happening?
There you go. Hey.
You guys doing well? I knew you guys wear black, so I decided to offset it with white. I was like, you know what? I was like, they're gonna wear black, so I'm gonna go opposite.
All I own is black. It's just a state of mind, really. It's my permanent state of being.
I figure with the background, it's like if I
It's
wear
off.
black, it just looks like I'm a little bobblehead walking around, and so I figured I'd just go a different direction.
Love it.
You
Love it.
look
How are you
good. You look
today?
good.
What'd you say?
How are you doing today, Nate?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's been a lively day, I tell you that much. It's been awesome.
Good. Good.
And where are you coming in from right now? Because we know you've been traveling and you had craziness. Where are you currently?
I'm in Orlando, so I'm back at home base.
All right. Well, hopefully you won't hit that tropical storm.
No, I tell you what, it's just Florida. We're just ready to get smacked again.
It's true.
Oh,
It is just Florida.
I did not even see that there's another one coming again.
Always.
It is that season.
Yeah, it is hard because it's like we're constantly getting updates, and then next thing you know, it's always the fright here. News is always like, oh, another one, and you're like, okay, it's another one they say, and so then you wait till it gets closer, till it's like 3 or 4 days out, then you actually take it serious.
Then you figure it out. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Nate, why don't you? We were just sharing with audience we were sharing a few things, trying to hype them up for the beginning, and we're still recording the intro. But what are some of your kind of go-tos when you're to get the most out of a summit? Like, what are some of your go-tos? Virtual
Man,
or live?
I always go into them with goals of what I'm trying to get out of them. And so I always look at the speakers. If they have topics like you guys have, it's great because here's the topics. And so you can be ready and available to make sure that you start kind of focusing in on certain areas of your life during that summit, And so whether it's in person or whether it's virtual, there's always nuggets. And so it's also depending on the phase of your life, exactly where you're at. Every summit is going to have different angles and directions. There's always something to learn. So I always go into it with a goal, but then also with an openness. That way I can always be available to learn and listen.
Yeah. Love that. That was one of ours. All right. Well,
great minds think alike. Great
absolutely.
minds think alike.
Nate, I know that you weren't certain if you were going to be able to stay within the time allotted. So why don't we just give you more time since we're already here? We're starting. What do you say? You want to start early?
You know what? I am always ready for more time because I was actually just running through it. I was like, oh man. So right here, being prepared, look what I got. I got a little timer, a little countdown timer from the time I got on there. Cause I'm like, I'm used to when I speak, I have a timer. And so that's kind of where it's my go-to. So, and nobody is here to like reach around and smack me. So, I got to make sure and stay on track.
Yeah. Yeah, we are good, but we are not that good to be able to reach through the screen and smack everybody.
Yeah, I would be highly concerned at that point. If you did show up, I'd be like, oh, wait a second, Lynn, how'd you get here?
It's funny, and actually Amanda knows this because she's been at a few. I MC a bunch of conferences here, and man, they all know if I am approaching the stage, you better wrap it up because don't make me get physical.
Oh man, well, that should be one of the goals is for me to fly over there and join you over there so that you can
Yes.
start walking towards stage because then I'll just run off the other side.
With
So
the microphone. I've actually had somebody do that before. They're like, keep
be like,
walking away from me with the
look,
microphone. Don't make
I'll be back in the green room still talking.
with the door locked.
Yeah, and that's why we need more time. No,
Yes.
that's awesome. I love it. I love
That's
it.
well, why don't we go ahead and get started? I'm actually going to stop recording, start recording again, and then we'll just do a quick, hey, this is Nate. And Amanda, you want to just quickly announce him and his title?
Absolutely.
And then we'll let you have an extra 10 minutes or so. But remember, we have somebody
Sounds good.
so you have to stop about 5 minutes early so we can have a little bit of transition.
I got my time clock.